Michael Turner lives alone in the quiet, forested town of Ely, Minnesota, a place known for its stillness and natural beauty. His small cabin sits not far from the vast and peaceful Bent-Side Lake, where the water stretches out calm and undisturbed, framed by tall pines and winding trails. Life moves slowly there, just the way Michael likes it. Most weekends, he loads his well-worn pickup truck with a tackle box, a folded chair, and his fishing rods, then drives down the familiar dirt path that leads to the lake's edge. It's a routine he rarely breaks, a quiet tradition that brings him comfort. Michael is a reserved man with weathered skin and a head of gray hair, a reflection of years spent outdoors in all seasons. He doesn't talk much, but there's a calm wisdom in his eyes and a quiet kindness in his gestures. He has no need for noise or crowds. Instead, he finds joy in the simple rhythm of nature, the rustling trees, the lapping water, and the fresh breeze that rolls in across the lake. For him, being out there, surrounded by nothing but sky, water, and forest, is the purest kind of peace. It was a calm summer Sunday morning, the kind that seemed to pause time itself. The sky stretched out in a rich shade of blue, unbroken by clouds, and the surface of Bent-Side Lake lay still, reflecting the trees and sky like a perfect mirror. The air was crisp and cool, gently brushing against Michael's face as he stepped out of his truck and gathered his gear. Slowly, he made his way through the tall grass to the edge of the lake, where the shore was lined with thick weeds and damp earth. With practiced hands, he gave his small wooden boat a gentle push, watching it glide away from the bank with a soft creak of the oars. Climbing in, he settled himself on the bench and began to paddle. The boat cut quietly across the water. When he reached his usual fishing spot, he lowered the anchor and baited his rod, casting the line with a relaxed flick of the wrist. Then, he set the rod in place and leaned back, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes scanning the open lake. Michael sat in silence, taking in the gentle sounds of nature, the call of a loon, leaves rustling, and a distant splash. The fresh scent of pine and lake water filled the air. He hadn't caught a fish, but to him, the peace and stillness were the real reward. Suddenly, a sharp cry shattered the calm, a high-pitched, desperate sound that echoed across the still surface of the lake. It came from far off, but it was clear and haunting, unlike any bird call Michael had heard before. His eyes snapped open and his body tensed. He sat up straight in the boat, the hairs on the back of his neck rising as he scanned the water in every direction. Something wasn't right. Off in the distance, he noticed a strange disturbance. Ripples breaking the glassy water, splashing in short, frantic bursts. It looked like something was struggling, caught in panic or pain. His heart began to race. Gripping the paddle with both hands, Michael didn't think twice. He turned the boat toward the disturbance and began to row, fast and steady, the urgency in his chest growing stronger with each stroke. When he reached the spot, he saw a small fawn drifting motionless, its eyes shut and body limp. At first glance, it appeared lifeless, but something in Michael urged him not to turn away. Carefully, he reached down and lifted the fragile creature into the boat. Its fur was soaked and chilled, but he could feel the faint rhythm of breath. Gently, he wrapped it in his coat and spoke to it in a quiet voice, then turned the boat around and paddled swiftly back toward shore. Once back on land, Michael didn't waste a second. He hurried across the soft ground, cradling the fawn tightly in his arms, its small body still wrapped in his coat. Reaching his old pickup truck parked beneath the pine trees, he carefully opened the passenger door and laid the fawn across the seat, adjusting the coat to keep it warm and shielded from the breeze. With one last check to make sure it was secure, he slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and the engine rumbled to life. The nearest veterinary clinic was in Ely, about 15 minutes away, but every second felt like an hour. As he drove, he kept glancing toward the fragile creature beside him, watching its shallow breaths and barely moving chest. The silence in the truck was heavy, broken only by the sound of tires on gravel. Leaning slightly toward the fawn, Michael whispered with quiet urgency, "Hold on. You're going to be okay. Help is coming." At the clinic, Michael rushed through the door, calling out for help. Within moments, 2 staff members came outside with a stretcher. Working quickly and carefully, they lifted the tiny deer from the truck and carried it inside, while Michael followed close behind, heart pounding. The air inside was cool and sterile, the room filled with soft beeping from nearby machines. A young female veterinarian stepped in immediately, her expression calm but focused. She placed the fawn gently on the examination table and began her assessment. "Lungs are filled with fluid," she said, pressing a stethoscope to its chest. "Critical condition, but there's still a chance." Without delay, her team moved into action. They inserted a suction device to draw the water from its lungs, while another prepared an injection to stimulate the heart and support its breathing. Michael stood close by, hands clenched, eyes fixed on the little creature. After long, tense moments, the fawn's tiny body twitched. Just once, but it was enough to bring a flicker of hope. Without thinking, Michael reached out and gently touched its leg, offering silent comfort, as if willing the animal to fight its way back. "You came just in time," the doctor said, glancing up at Michael with a small but hopeful smile. Her words brought a slight wave of relief, but the tension in the room still hung thick. The staff continued their careful monitoring, checking the fawn's heartbeat, adjusting fluids, and making sure its body temperature stayed stable. For what felt like forever, the little deer lay still under the soft glow of the overhead light. Then, after a long and anxious half-hour, its eyelids fluttered. Slowly, the fawn opened its eyes, weak but alert. A soft cheer spread through the room, quiet but full of warmth. One of the nurses smiled, another clapped gently, and Michael let out the breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His shoulders dropped, and for the first time that day, he smiled, relieved and grateful. As the fawn rested, the doctor turned to Michael and spoke about next steps. Since it would need continued care over the next few days, she recommended temporary adoption until it could safely be released. Michael nodded without hesitation. He listened carefully as she explained the responsibilities, feeding, warmth, observation, then took the clipboard in his hand. With a steady grip and quiet resolve, he signed the rescue pet acceptance form, his name scribbled beside a growing sense of duty and compassion. Back home, Michael carefully prepared a small, quiet corner in his living room just for the fawn. He laid out thick blankets on the floor, added a soft towel for comfort, and placed a warm heating lamp nearby to help regulate her temperature. Beside it, he set a bottle of milk, warmed gently, and a shallow bowl of water. The space felt calm and safe, just what the fragile creature needed. Gently, he knelt down and offered the bottle. At first, the fawn didn't react, still weak and dazed from the ordeal. But after a few moments, she began to drink, slowly at first, then with more purpose. Michael stayed right beside her, patient and quiet, his hand resting lightly near her head in case she needed support. He watched her tiny movements with care, his heart full but steady. As the fawn settled in, her breathing calmer now, Michael gave her a name, Willow. It came to him naturally, soft, graceful, and delicate, just like the way she moved, and the way she'd come into his life. Day by day, Willow began to grow stronger. At first, she stood on shaky legs, wobbling with each step as she tested her balance across the living room floor. Soon, she was walking more steadily, curiously exploring corners of the house with wide, cautious eyes. Her energy returned in small bursts, gentle hops, soft nudges, and moments of playful alertness. Michael watched her closely through it all, caring for her with quiet dedication. He fed her on schedule, cleaned up after her, and even guided her gently through the backyard for short walks in the sunlight. To his neighbors, it was an unusual sight. A man raising a deer inside his home. They stopped by, astonished and full of questions. But for Michael, it felt natural. This wasn't just an animal in need. It was something more. A quiet connection, a shared trust, a bond born in the stillness of the lake. To him, Willow was a gift from nature, one he had been chosen to receive. As the days passed and Willow grew more confident, Michael could see the change in her. She moved with ease now, walking with steady steps, nibbling at leaves in the yard, and standing taller with each passing morning. Her eyes were brighter, her body stronger. It became clear to him she was ready for the next step. As much as he loved having her close, Michael knew she didn't belong indoors forever. She was a creature of the wild, and it was time to let her return to it. He reached out to Bearhead Lake State Park, a nearby preserve known for its work with rescued wildlife. After a warm conversation, a ranger named Rachel Myers agreed to accept Willow into their care. They scheduled the handoff for Saturday morning. That day, Michael loaded Willow into the truck, laying soft blankets beneath her, and driving north toward Cook, Minnesota, the early sun filtering through the trees. When they arrived, Rachel greeted them with a kind smile and a gentle hand on Willow's head. Together, they carried her to a quiet enclosure, where she would begin her reintroduction. Willow hesitated for a moment, then took slow, steady steps toward the preserve, her ears flicking as she adjusted to the sounds of her new surroundings. Michael stood by the fence, watching in silence. His chest tightened with pride and sadness as she walked away. When she disappeared among the trees, he turned, blinking back tears. His heart was heavy, but full, knowing she was where she truly belonged. Rachel expressed her heartfelt gratitude, touched by the kindness Michael had shown. She looked at him with sincere admiration, knowing that not everyone would have done what he did. Michael responded with a quiet, humble smile and simply said, "I only did what anyone should do when life needs a hand." There was no pride in his voice, just a gentle honesty. Back home, Michael returned to his routine, still driving out to Bentside Lake with his fishing rod and old tackle box. The lake was just as peaceful as ever, its surface calm, the air filled with birdsong. But something inside Michael had changed. Now, when he sat in his boat or walked along the water's edge, his heart felt fuller. The solitude he once knew hadn't vanished, but it no longer carried the weight of loneliness. Instead, it held something warm, something alive. Whenever someone asked him about his quiet life, Michael didn't speak of fish or weather. Instead, he would tell them the story of that one morning, a moment when nature reached out and he chose to answer. Because sometimes, all it takes is a small act of compassion to create a memory that lasts forever. In that single choice, he had written a chapter of his life he would never forget. Dear friend, thank you for taking the time to follow this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support us, and let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching us.